All right, as far as the next section has to do with factoring, which is the exact opposite operation of expanding. So expanding, you go from factors into polynomial. For factoring, you're going to go in the reverse direction. The form that we're going to look at today is x squared plus bx plus c, which basically means a leading coefficient of 1. And there's a separate rule for leading coefficients that are something other than 1, but for a leading coefficient of 1, it's real simple what you're looking to do. And what that is, you're looking to take an expression, and you're basically reverse foiling it. Okay? When we looked at FOIL, our first factors, or the first terms of two factors, or the binomial factors, when you look to factor an expression, have to give you a product of this first term, this leading term. So the only way you can get x squared with two separate terms being multiplied by each other is x and x. And that's always going to be the first part of, or first terms of your factors. Now, the next thing you're going to do is look at the two possible factors that can give you this last value, the 8. And so if you look at 8, just break it down and see what are the different factors of 8. So you have 1 times 8, you have 2 times 4, and that's it. And then it's just the reverse of them. So 4 times 2, and then 8 times 1. So when you're looking at your different types of factors, okay, when this last term is a positive, you know your two factors have to have the same sign. So again, you could have -1 and -8, -2 and -4 as well. So the next thing, or the very last thing that you're going to look at, is this middle term has to be the sum of your outer and inner terms when you FOIL this, or when you work to expand it. So what you're going to do is you're going to look in this list right here, which of these possible factors have an overall sum of positive 6. So which of these pairs adds up to 6? 2 and 4. So those become your second terms. So plus 2 and plus 4. The sign carries along with it. And that is the factors of this expression. And so anytime your leading coefficient is a 1, that's what you're looking to do. So let's say you take the following. And you're looking for the factors. You know your first terms are going to be x's, and your last terms have to be two factors of positive 6 whose sum is positive 5. So again, you're looking, since the sign is positive, you know that these have to have the exact same sign. They're both positive or they're both negative, and their sum has to be 5. So if you look at this, 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and then the negatives of these. But since the sum is a positive number, you don't even need to consider the negatives. So which of these pairs will work? 2 and 3. And so once again, you can find your factors pretty quickly that way. Okay. What if you have something that looks like the following? Okay, and you're looking to factor this. Okay, so once again, your first terms of each binomial factor are going to be an x. That's the only thing that can give you this first term. So what are the possible factors of 4? Again, 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Now, the sign has to be the same since the product is positive, but the sum is going to be negative. So do we even need to consider the positive pairings? No. So all you need to do is consider these two pairings. Which of them gives you a sum of -5? -1, -4, and so that would be your factors. So here your first terms are x's, your last terms are two factors of -10 whose sum is -3. Since the product is, this number is a negative, the signs will be opposite, so you're looking at -1 and 10. Well, again, you can limit your possibilities by noticing the sum of the terms has to be negative. So you know that the larger of the two numbers is going to be the negative. So we can look at 1 and -10, 2 and -5, and that's it. There's nothing else where the negative term will be larger. So when we look at all these pairings, the only one that has a sum of -3 is this one. So a plus 2 and a minus 5 are the second terms of each of those binomial factors. And this allows you to factor the whole thing pretty easily. Okay, have you guys been exposed to this before? The factoring stuff? Okay. So the one other place that this would be used would be in an equation. So if they gave you an equation form, and you were asked to solve this, again, maybe without a calculator, or you might be able to do it more quickly than using a calculator. If you write it in your standard form, so use the zero product rule, you have to compare it to 0. So if we move the 12 over, so subtract the 12 from both sides, and then try to factor the left side so that you can apply the zero product rule. Your first terms of each of these factors is x. That's the only thing that can give you the product of x squared. And then what are two factors of negative 12 whose sum is positive 4? Again, if you're looking at negative 12, since the product's negative, the signs will be different. So 1 and 12. Well, since it's a positive sum, we know our larger number has to be the positive. Negative 2 and 6, negative 3 and 4, and then it starts going where the negatives are larger. So those are the only three you need to consider. Do any of those have an overall sum of positive 4? Minus 2 and a plus 6. And so now you can solve your equation if you set each of these factors equal to 0. What value of x would give you a 0 in this factor? Just take the opposite of this, adding 2. And what value of x would give you a 0 in this factor? Negative 6. Becca, question?
You always turn the positive 12 into negative 12?
Well, you're just going to move it to the other side.
So you always do it if it's positive?
Yes. Again, what we're doing here is we're just undoing this to move everything to one side and set it equal to 0. And once again, your calculator allows you to factor and to solve equations if you wanted to use it for factoring. So let's say we wanted to verify this right here. Under the Algebra tab, the second one is factor. You can type your expression exactly as it is. X squared minus 3x minus 10, close it off, hit enter, and you get your factors x minus 5 and x plus 2. And if you wanted to verify this solving problem, once again under F2 you have the solve function. If you type your equation exactly as it appears, x squared plus 4x equals 12. Identify that you want to solve for x with the comma x, hit enter, and it'll give you your two solutions, negative 6 and a positive 2. So you can confirm it or use your calculator as well. I just want you again to have seen how it's done without the calculator.